If you're Donald Trump's Department of Justice and FBI and you've got a fatally deficient indictment against former FBI Director James Comey that you know or should know is going to get dismissed sooner rather than later, both for the grand jury screw-ups, the vindictive prosecution, the immature lawyering demonstrated by the Department of Justice and its 72-hour prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, when you know that's going to be going down in flames, then you better maximize the publicity around the indictment. You better try to get the media to go after James Comey and convict him in the court of public opinion and on social media, because you're never going to do it in the courtroom. And now we've got new reporting that Kash Patel and I'm sure Donald Trump have decided that they're not going to allow former FBI Director James Comey to do the thing that is required by the Department of Justice manual, which is to surrender on October 9th, this week coming up, in Alexandria, Virginia courthouse, and to have his first appearance and to be arraigned and to plead not guilty in the custody, if you will, of his lawyers. No, they're considering doing a perp walk, meaning they want to put his hands behind his back, have, in their words, according to insiders, two beefy violent crimes FBI agents in full kit, including FBI emblazoned, because they want the optics of the former FBI director being carted away by the FBI. And they want to tar and feather him in the public opinion because they know they'll never be able to do it inside of a courtroom. Does it violate the Department of Justice manual and its limits on media exposure of cases? It certainly does. Does it indicate the weakness, the depravity, the lack of ethics of the FBI and the Department of Justice under Donald Trump? Of course. But we expected that. So did Pat Fitzgerald, the lawyer for James Comey. And there's a resistance that is built up where the FBI senior supervisors, but I'm sure they'll find a patsy to do it, but the senior supervisors have said, we're not taking part in this, that there's no justification to perp walk James Comey, and we're not doing it. And there's some new, let's just put it, some new HR decisions at the FBI as a result of that resistance. I'm Michael Popok. We're part of the resistance here together on the Midas Touch Network, and you're here on Legal AF on Saturday. Thank you for doing that. Hit the free subscribe button as we dive into and get prepared for the October 9th arraignment. Now, here on the Legal AF YouTube channel, one of our major contributors, Adam Klasfeld of All Rise News, he's actually on his way to Virginia to be in or near the courtroom for the arraignment. So tune back into Legal AF. We're going to have him on Legal AF Substack doing live reporting from the courthouse with me during that. But the new reporting we have is a special agent in charge of violent crime unit of the FBI has been fired because of his refusal to participate in getting together a posse to perp walk James Comey. Now, perp walks are appropriate in some circumstances when you don't want to announce that somebody's been arrested in advance and you want to knock on the door and take them by surprise because they're a violent criminal or because there's a fear of them leaving the jurisdiction or going on the lam, something like that. Like when they knocked on the door at 6 o'clock in the morning and roused Rudy Giuliani out of bed in order to execute on a search warrant, like that. But here, they know where to find James Comey. He's already represented by counsel, Pat Fitzgerald, former U.S. Attorney for Illinois, Northern District of Illinois. And there's no need for this. In fact, the media policy in the Department of Justice manual says you are not to allow, they don't say perp walk, but you're not to allow a photograph or media coverage of an arrest, which already undermines the presumption of innocence unless there's a legitimate law enforcement purpose. Now, if I was Pat Fitzgerald, unless he thinks it's to his advantage to show the overreach of the Trump administration and as part of his vindictive prosecution motion to dismiss in the future, which he may, They got their big boy pants on. They might say, hey, Jim Comey, you were a U.S. attorney in New York. You were the FBI director. You're a lawyer. We think if you can put up with it, we think even though it'll give an immediate flash of a front page photo, it's great for our future motion to dismiss on vindictive prosecution. You're the client. What do you want to do? It's on a knife's edge, that decision. Or you run into court early, you file an emergency motion to avoid the perp walk and put the government back on its heels. It could go either way. We have some time until Thursday or until the 9th of October. But the fact that Kash Patel has to fire people because they refuse, because they recognize how inhumane, depraved, and in violation of the Department of Justice manual it is, and he doesn't, is a stinging indictment and rebuke of the Trump administration itself. Now, Comey is in good hands in terms of his representation, and he knows that this could play both ways. Let me show you a photo at this moment. Again, this is the Trump administration, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, going after former, or at least now suspended, state court judge in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Hannah Dugan, because she refused to allow ICE to pick up a criminal defendant that she was presiding over in a matter, pick him up from the courthouse in her courtroom, and had him go out a side door with his lawyer. He was picked up outside, okay? She was arrested for obstruction, and she was willing to turn herself in, but no, they wanted to make an example of her. Here's a photo of the perp walk that they released on social media, including on the FBI, Kash Patel social media, Pam Bondi social media. Here is the photos. So this is what they want to do. Does it serve a legitimate law enforcement purpose? Hell no. Is it being done so Donald Trump has yet another pound of flesh from James Comey, especially on an indictment that's on life support, if not less? Yes, that's why they're doing it. But it's going to be interesting to see what Comey's decision ultimately is. Does he want to be a martyr and say, take me, I'm here. You want to put my hands behind my back? You want, and have his lawyers record it all and use it in their case? That would be a very courageous thing to do against a lot of against a lot of personal sacrifice to pull that off. Or does he run into court early? He does one of the two things. That I'm sure of. If it were me and I had a client like James Comey, big, tall, strapping guy who understands how this works with sharp elbows in practice, and I had Pat Fitzgerald, who's a fighter, I'd say, let him come get me. Let him come get me and arrest me and perp walk me, and we'll use it to our advantage in the motion to dismiss. Now, there's some good news on that front. I just did a hot take that's up a little bit earlier today. Abrego Garcia filed a motion to dismiss for vindictive prosecution against the Trump administration that the entire nation is watching closely, especially people like Representative McIver of New Jersey, who has her own motion for vindictive prosecution pending, and Comey, who will have one in the future, and Letitia James, New York Attorney General, the same thing if she's ever indicted, and Adam Schiff, the same thing for mortgage fraud. But the first case that went kind of forward is in front of Judge Crenshaw, Middle District of Tennessee, brought by Armando Abrego Garcia, and it's looking good. This judge has already concluded that there's enough evidence of vindictive prosecution that he wants a mini trial on it. And the way he's framed the issues, I think the Department of Justice is going to lose and Abrego Garcia is going to win. And not only is there going to be a big hooray for civil liberties and to protect us from abuse of prosecutorial abuse, but it will be used as a roadmap and a blueprint by the Comeys of the world in their cases. There's going to be a lot of developments here and there, but you can see the Trump administration doesn't want to take any resistance. You say, no, it's inappropriate to perp walk the former FBI director under these circumstances. You're gone. You're fired. Senior people in the Eastern District of Virginia, one of the most prestigious prosecutor's office, fired. Why? Because they wouldn't support Lindsey Halligan? No, because some deep state Jan 6th election denier sent a mean tweet, and Donald Trump said, fire, make us less safe, fire the head of national security and terrorism in the Eastern District of Virginia, U.S. Attorney's Office, get rid of him. Sure, why not? But I want you to see this as, yes, the roadmap and blueprint of a dictator, but also how incredibly shrunken and weak Donald Trump has become before our very eyes. He's like the incredible shrinking president. Now, I know a lot of people will be saying, Popok, what are you talking about? Look at his wins at the Supreme Court. Look at his conduct. Look how he's acting. Even he knows he's shrunken. Even he knows that he is, the more tantrums, the more bizarre cosplay military brass reviews, the more throw the switch and do emergency shutdowns and don't swear in elected officials that are Democrats because of Epstein. He is a shrunken, shaken, weak man. And this will and this is being seen and playing out on the big screen for the American people to make their voting decision. Doesn't make him strong to want to put Comey in cuffs. It makes him weak. It makes us think the emperor has no clothes. The emperor has no mind either, but he certainly has no clothes. That's the way you need to interpret these things. And that's what's showing up in the polling. We'll continue to follow it. And as I said at the top of the hot take, Adam Klasfeld, All Rise News, right here on the Legal AF YouTube channel, is going to be doing reporting from the courtroom and courthouse and the grounds of the courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia on the 9th of October about James Comey. If there's a perp walk, we're going to know about it kind of first because Adam will be there and hopefully he'll be able to jump on Substack Live with us and do live reporting. In fact, make sure you subscribe to Substack for Legal AF. You're going to love that channel. And if you can swing a paid membership, that helps us keep all the content on the air, greases all the wheels for Legal AF World. And while you're here on Legal AF YouTube channel, do the exact same thing. Become a member. We have no outside investors, no corporate parent telling us what to do, nobody abridging our First Amendment rights or yours. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.